think he probably is willing to rely on a little more. I think Timo Werner has a great history with the German national team. He's a proven goal scorer in more leagues than just the Bundesliga. But I think there are players in his position that have probably just performed that little bit better. With him changing club sort of mid-season as well, I don't think that's helped his chances. But only time will tell. It's, as said, it could still happen, and he's probably one of the players on the shortlist as well, should an injury come in and mean that someone else probably can't take part. But then, of course, there is also the chance that Nagelsmann instead goes to some of the under-21 players, like the two joining today, Brian Gruda and Rocco Reitz. Brian Gruda, still just 19 years old, currently with Mainz. A really exciting young player. Plenty of experience for international teams, all the way back to the under-15s and all the way up to the under-21s. Has scored for the under-18s, under-19s and under-21s as well. So definitely a player we'll be seeing in a Germany first team shirt at some stage. Whether it'll be at the Euros, I'm not so sure though. And then of course Rocco Reitz as well, another really exciting young player, 21-year-old, who is currently with Borussia Mönchengladbach. And yeah, another really exciting player. Not quite as experienced, only 5 international caps, one of those at under-16 level, the other 4 at under-21 level, but in those 4 appearances has found the back of the net twice already, and it's performances like that that have excited that man Julian Nagelsmann, and performances like that that find him here training with the first team in this open live training. The players just limbering up still. Looks like there might be perhaps a few shooting exercises for the fans to enjoy here as well. My guess will be there'll probably be a little small-sided game towards the end on top of that. Leroy Sané, fantastic player. One of those players that on his day, probably one of the best in the business. Some would say consistency in his performances, perhaps the only downside to Leroy Sané, but at a tournament it is all about form and confidence, and if he can find that early, then he will give defences a world of trouble, you can believe me, because when he's moving at full pace, he's also got the ability to keep the ball at his feet and comes up with some fantastic finishes. Got such power behind some of his shots, but then such finesse with others, so really excited to see what he can do. Let me get back to the chat here. Gundogan is a good central attacking midfielder and central midfielder, and is best suited to be a number 8 or box-to-box midfielder. Yeah, Gundogan, another player who could be so pivotal for Germany. Really has aged like a fine wine. Ilkay Gundogan just seems to be getting better with every year he adds to his age. The same could be said for Toni Kroos, who for me is still one of the best midfielders in the world, and arguably one of the best to ever do it in that position. Hello from Colombia. Nice to have you here, Jorge Gomez. Who is the captain now, Neuer or Müller? I think Manuel Neuer will carry the captain's armband, but I think Thomas Müller, a good shout for vice-captain. Of course, the final decision will be made just before the tournament kicks off. Finns Gaming, Musiala is the best youngster in the world right now. Well, he's up against some stiff competition in that department, but I think he's definitely... tournaments. A question: who is Julian's assistant manager? Kiwalabye Simon. That would be Sandro Wagner, former German international himself. A lot of love from Bangladesh. Ligma asking, do you think this will be Muller's last tournament? Well, you never know with Thomas Muller. He doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, does he? Could be. Well, probably will be. But you'd hate to see him go. I mean, when it's in terms of accomplishments, not just at club level, but at international level as well, Thomas Muller could be one of the best players Germany has ever had. And I think Bayern Munich will say the same about him for them. But yes, could possibly be his last tournament. Rian Ranga, Müller or Neuer or Kroos deserve to be the captain for this team. Well, I think all three would be the first candidates. But as far as I understand, it will be Manuel Neuer. And doesn't come as too much of a surprise, though, does it? Will Müller have completed football if he wins the Euros with Germany this year? Well, I think you'd have to say so, yeah. I know in my lifetime, I can't think of too many players with as many accolades as Thomas Müller. Such a humble guy as well, from humble origins, and I think that shows in the way that he approaches the game. But having him there, even if he doesn't play as many minutes as he might have in the past, I think just having a character like that amongst some of the younger players or some of the more inexperienced players can make such a difference. Someone who's been there, done it all before, but can also come off the bench and give you 20 incredible minutes. In terms of effort and input, I mean, it doesn't get much better than Thomas Müller, and his will to win, regardless of the situation, is second to none. So, an absolute GOAT, as Vian says in the chat as well. A question here about who the current goalkeeper coach is. Well, there's two for Germany. Andreas Kronenberg and Michael Fuchs are the two goalkeeper coaches, so I hope that helps out. Do you think Havertz deserves some praise? Luluwa Nasser from Q8 asks, yes, he does. We were just talking about Kai Havertz and the season he's had with Arsenal. I think he's definitely deserved all the praise he's gotten, and it's great to see him back at his best. So, thanks for the question. Just going through some of the chats again. Does he play better? Tournament, whether it's a World Cup or a Euros. Yes, they have had tournaments in the past where they've gone missing all of a sudden, but those are few and far between, and I think more often than not you'll find them in the mix going for the title come the final 4 teams or so. I think England are in with a really good shout of getting far at the tournament as well. So I think those would be my top 3, with Spain probably coming in 4th as well, in terms of the teams that I think are in with a really good shout of winning it this summer. I think they all have exciting squads, good managers, good mentality, and players who are really in form at club level in their domestic leagues. So those would be my 4. But feel free to get involved. Let me know who you think is going to win the Euros. How far can Germany go? Is Julian Nagelsmann the manager to bring glory back to the German national team? Let's have another look at some of these comments here. Sabin Füllkrug is more of a proper number 9 than Havertz, though. Totally agree, totally agree. Depends how you want to play, really, I suppose. Do you want that target man like Füllkrug up front? Very different sort of players, aren't they? I mean, Füllkrug is more of an old school number 9. Havertz more of a modern forward who can play anywhere across a front 3. I think it depends on the opponent. I think it depends on the situation in the game as well. I mean, one thing Füllkrug is amazing at is just holding up play, and sometimes you feel like he's gone missing in a game, although he hasn't. He does the things that people perhaps don't see, don't recognize, don't appreciate as much. You know, the hard and dirty work that no one likes to write headlines about. I think Füllkrug really sums that sort of a situation up really well, and can sort of play 60 minutes where you feel like he hasn't really done much, but then pops up with a goal, and then you watch the highlights and you realize that the other 2 goals scored by Borussia Dortmund or Germany all came through him. His hold-up play, his good upper body strength to sort of ride off challenges and tackles and just keep play flowing, allowing other players to then come in and be involved either side of him, be that in wide positions or through the middle as well. So, yeah, it's a good shout. I wouldn't be surprised if Nagelsmann does start Füllkrug up front as the main man, leading the line, and perhaps Havertz in a sort of wide position out left. I mean, having both of them on the pitch, what's wrong with that as well, right? Moukoko should play. Well, he does play at under 21 level, scores goals for fun there. I don't think we'll see him at the Euros, though. What else do we have? John Williams. Bayer should be ahead of Füllkrug. Well, you're probably not the only person to think that. I mean, if you think of the season Maximilian Bayer has had, it's, well, one to really take note of. The Hoffenheim forward in scintillating form, but doesn't quite have the experience at international level. Of course, yet to make his first cap for the German national team, and I think it's that lack of experience which will see him, if he is in the final squad for the tournament, probably starts from the bench rather than be in the starting 11. How about prediction for the starting lineup for first group match? Nagelsmann will choose double forward Füllkrug and Havertz, or just Füllkrug with 2 attacking wingers on the left and the right. I think a front 3 is probably more likely. But that doesn't mean that Füllkrug and Havertz can't still be involved, as just mentioned. I mean, you could have the likes of Wirtz probably playing maybe out in a wide right position, or a front 3 of Havertz out on the left, Füllkrug leading the line up front, Leroy Sané out on the right, and then even have a Florian Wirtz sort of in behind that front 3 if you want to be really aggressive and really attacking. Something I think Germany can afford to do against Scotland in the opening game. I think you really have to go for it. You want to get off to a really strong start. I think a high-scoring win there's nothing better for you at an international tournament, especially in front of your home fans and on home soil as well. You know, get that confidence running through the veins of each and every player nice and early, and then build on that. Have that be your foundation to go forward. I think you can't ask for more than that now. Does that mean if Germany don't necessarily perform well in their first game that they can't go on and win the tournament? No, of course not. I mean, look at Argentina at the World Cup, you know, losing to Saudi Arabia and then went on to become world champions. So it's not the be-all or end-all. However, I think it is something that Nagelsmann will be hoping for and aiming for, because it certainly will be a helping hand, but not decisive. Will Wirtz play Euros? Clauin asks. I think he'll definitely be there. Wirtz is not with the squad right now, having just won the DFB Pokal with Bayer Leverkusen. He's been given a little bit of time to rest. His season was a little bit longer than some of the players out there here today. Another reminder for those of you who have just joined us, there are still some players away and on club duty. The Bayer Leverkusen players not here. The Borussia Dortmund players, they still have that Champions League final coming up. Same goes for the Real Madrid players, Toni Kroos, for example, and Ter Stegen and İlkay Gündoğan also not joining up, as the La Liga season a little longer than the German one. Michael G. Scott, who should start in goal between Neuer and Ter Stegen? Well, it's a question that has racked the minds of German fans for how many years now? I mean, some would say, I think many would say, that Germany are very, very fortunate in the goalkeeping department. I mean, they have some fantastic goalkeepers at their disposal. Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, the Germany #2 and Barcelona #1, 40 caps already. But, of course, has Manuel Neuer ahead of him, who's on 117 caps. Absolutely incredible. Second most cap player in this Euro squad. The most cap being Thomas Müller with 128. For me, I think you have to go with Manuel Neuer if he's fit. Simply because, say what you want, I think Manuel Neuer is still one of the best goalkeepers in the business. I mean, that semi-final in the Champions League, yes, it was a Manuel Neuer mistake that perhaps led to that goal, that famous goal now. But if you look at the game as a whole, the amount of saves he pulled off throughout that game, and I don't mean just normal saves, I mean like crunch time, clutch saves. I think, yes, they became then forgotten with the one mistake that he did make, but I think he did show that he was keeping Bayern Munich in that semi-final for lengthy periods of time, thanks to his antics in goal. And I think his experience and ability is still unmatched in terms of the goalkeeping department for the international team. So, for me, you have to start Manuel Neuer if he's fit and available. I don't think you can get past him, really. But should Marc-Andre Ter Stegen be given the opportunity, I don't think anyone's going to be too upset either, because he, in turn, is another world-class goalkeeper. So, yeah, not a decision I'd want to be making, but if I had to, I would probably go with Manuel Neuer, and this will probably be his last international tournament as well. So, could be one hell of a goodbye if Germany do well. Questions about, will you bring it live here? Will the Euros be live here? That's what he'll be judged on. But Julian Nagelsmann's dress sense and fashion sense, always part of the conversation, no matter what the occasion. Am I right? Ivan Raimi starts Süle along Rudiger. He's an absolute unit. Well, I wouldn't disagree with you there. He certainly is an absolute unit, but I don't think he'll be starting alongside Rudiger, as he's not even part of the squad at the moment, and it doesn't look like he's going to be. where are the German training camps? Schrisch, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is asking. So they're currently in Jena in Germany here for this training session. But the training camp itself is in a place called Blankenheim, which is in Thüringen. So I hope that helps. And to be even more precise, the team are at the Spa and Golf Resort Weimarer Land in Thüringen. And that is where they'll be for the two friendlies coming up against the Ukraine and then against Greece before the Euros get underway midway through June. The two friendlies on the 6th of June, or excuse me, the 3rd of June and the 7th of June. So the 3rd of June is against the Ukraine. That's an 8:45 kickoff Central European time. And the game against Greece on the 7th of June, same kickoff time as well, also in Germany. Troy Michael, Mats Hummels, one of the best German centre-backs of all time. Complete disrespect. Yeah, well, I don't think you'll be alone there. I think there's plenty of Germany fans that will feel Mats Hummels should be in the squad. I'm sure there'll be just as many who think he shouldn't be. It's definitely a real discussion point, isn't it? And one that will go on during the Euros and after the Euros as well. Depending on how well Germany do. Certainly has had an incredible season with Borussia Dortmund, hasn't it? In a season where a lot of, I think a lot of people thought he was probably, or probably had played his best games and put in his best performances, but that's almost a BVB and Bayern Munich legend, more of a BVB legend if I'm completely honest. Well, just never ceases to amaze or surprise, does he? And as far as I know, or as far as I can remember, probably one of the best in the air as well. Such an aerial presence in the box, both defensively and defensively, but doesn't look like he's going to be part of the European Championships this summer. Will you support Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final? That's a tough one. It's a tough one. I have always had a soft spot for Borussia Dortmund. However, I'm also a big Zinedine Zidane fan, and so Real Madrid also has a place in my heart. Let's put it this way: I won't be depressed no matter who wins. But I am really looking forward to that final. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. William, will Germany be able to break the group stage curse? Well, we certainly hope so, don't we? I think they've probably, in terms of the teams they've been, well, not given, because no one's given anything at an international tournament, but the teams they've been selected alongside, shall I say, has given them a really good chance of making it out of the group. I think especially the first two games against Scotland and Hungary are games that they could and maybe even should win. I think Switzerland will be the toughest encounter. That's their third game and also their final group game, which, depending on how the first two go, I mean, fingers crossed they go well, but let's say they don't, then and they have to pick up points or need to win that last game against Switzerland, that could be a tough one, because I think Switzerland are a very underrated side. I think they've shown in recent years that they're a team on the up. They've got a lot of really talented players playing at a very high level around the world and around Europe at club level. I think Granit Xhaka, perfect example at Leverkusen, you know, another player who, after leaving Arsenal, a lot of people probably thought, well, we've probably seen the best from him, then goes on to become German champion and DFB Pokal winner, very nearly Europa League winner as well. Who else? I mean, in the goalkeeping department, they've got some fantastic goalkeepers at their disposal as well. And just a really really underrated team for me. So I think it's important for Germany to pick up maximum points in those first 2 games, and then they don't have to worry about that last game against Switzerland. Although, again, it is a game I think Germany probably should win on paper. But let's just hope they don't make that a do-or-die match, shall we say. I think that's the most important thing. Where is Julian Brandt? Julian Brandt not with the squad at the moment. Whether or not he'll be in the final squad, also a question mark there. But because he has the Champions League final to look forward to with Borussia Dortmund, he and other players involved with those 2 teams, Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid, not with the national team here today. Do you think Wirtz will join Bayern in 2025? Well, I think not just Bayern Munich will be trying to sign Florian Wirtz in the seasons to come. I think he'll probably stay with Leverkusen for as long as Xabi Alonso does, and then possibly move elsewhere. But I don't think he'll be going anywhere this summer anyway. Not unless someone comes in with crazy money for him, then we might see him make the move. We might see Leverkusen try and cash in, but can't see that happening. And I'd quite like to see a full season from him at Leverkusen, playing in the Champions League as well. I think there's still more to give and more to come for Bayern 04, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Florian Wirtz move on elsewhere in the not so distant future, but not this summer or next. But then again, you never know in football, do you? Anything is possible, and with some of the money thrown around these days, God knows what will happen. I hope to see him at Leverkusen for another season or 2, at least, though. And then, yeah, up to him to see what he does next. David Darkness believes Portugal will win the Euro. Tell you what, as far as dark horses go, I think it's a really good shout. If you look on paper, Portugal's team, what do I think about Belgium? It's an interesting one, because Belgium really is a fantastic team. But they just never seem to be able to do the business on the big stage. They almost remind me of the so-called golden era for England that had Lampard, Gerrard, all of those world-class players, Ashley Cole, sort of on paper, absolutely incredible team, but then on the pitch just never really did it. And I hate to say it, but Belgium seems to remind me of them every time I watch them play. Well, we've got a number of you guessing Newcastle, and you're absolutely right. Newcastle United is the English team I support, shall we say. Elton Nguyen, what are my thoughts on Hungary this year? To be honest, I think they could. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, they've got some exciting players, they really do. Whether or not they'll be able to do it on the big stage, I mean, they've earned their spot at the Euros, well and truly. And they could be the surprise team in that group. I don't see Scotland getting out of the group. I think the favourites for me to go through are Germany and Switzerland. Hungary, then probably the third favourite to go through, although I think it might just be a step too far for them this time. But they do have a lot of exciting young players in their team, and I can see them being more of a threat in the future. But I may stand corrected come the group stage. Going through some of the questions here. A lot of them flying in now. Most of them guesses of who I support. Thank you for all the guesses. And congratulations to the likes of Clerix, Mainsman, Kwangdong Nguyen, Amsterdam is the beste, Brown Kamwimbi. all guessing Newcastle United. Well done. What else have we got? What German player is in their prime? Good question. It's almost a mix of players that are sort of edging towards their prime and coming into their prime, and then players who, well, you don't want to say past their prime, but more experienced, shall we say. In terms of players in their prime, I mean, I suppose you could argue age-wise Leroy Sané is a player who's in his prime. Age-wise, I'd say Kai Havertz is probably in his prime. Apart from that, the rest, I think, still have their prime ahead of them, which for some of them is really exciting, like players like Musiala and Wirtz. And others, well, you'd say on paper are past their prime, but then, as we said before, players like Gundogan and Toni Kroos playing some of the best football of their career, and on paper are past their prime. So I'd say in their prime, for me, probably Havertz or Sané, and out of the two, I'd probably have to go with Kai Havertz, I think, just based on consistency. Having a look again at some of the questions here. The group of death at the Euros. Well, I mean, Group B's got to be a contender for it, hasn't it? I mean, Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. I think that's going to be a really, really tough group. I mean, Spain, always a threat, always great players, always play amazing football. Croatia, I mean, one of the best European teams in terms of performance when it comes to international tournaments, be that a Euros or a World Cup. I mean, a country of that size with that population and what they have accomplished in the last 15, 20 years, and the players that they've produced. I mean, the likes of, I mean, just so many to pick from. I mean, Modric, probably the player that stands out most. Absolutely incredible. And I think, again, they will be contenders. Another team. I mean, you almost call Croatia a dark horse every tournament, and then they go and surprise you by making it through to the final four or to the final. So I think Croatia there with Portugal, definitely dark horses to take it as well. Taking a look at the other groups, if we look at Group C, England, Serbia, Denmark, Slovenia, I think you have to go with England to be favourites there to go through. Second spot up for grabs, really, between Slovenia, Denmark and Serbia. Group D, Netherlands, France, Poland and Austria. I think France and the Netherlands, the favourites to go through, but then Poland, some exciting players there, Lewandowski and company. Always a threat. And Austria, I mean, if you look at their squad, the only problem for Austria probably being they've got a number of big names injured just before the tournament as well, which might just dampen their chances to make it out of the group. Be interesting to see. If you look at Group E, Ukraine, Slovakia, Belgium and Romania. I think Belgium the favourites to go through there. Second spot again up for grabs. Group F, I think Portugal in a great position to go through with the Czech Republic, Georgia and Turkey in the group with them. So, yeah, looking at the groups, pretty straightforward, but it never really is once the tournament starts. So we'll have to see exactly how it all unfolds. What's Kimmich's best position? Well, that's a question the whole of Germany has had. Personally, I think sort of a holding midfielder seems to fit him best. I know he's had a lot of success in a right-back position as well, at club and international level. I'm just not sure he's got the pace for the modern game, if you know what I mean. I don't know how I'd feel about Kimmich being up against, perhaps in the right-back position, and then being up against an Mbappe, shall we say. I don't think that's a battle I see him winning too often. However, in a sort of holding midfield position, I think he can be far more influential. I think he's got great distribution as well. Loves to play a long ball. Great switch of play in him as well. So personally, I'd play him in that sort of a role. But then again, a lot of competition in the squad in that position as well. And perhaps he might be one of the stronger options at right back. Let's just say I'm glad I'm not Julian Nagelsmann when it comes to picking the squad or the starting 11 for that first team. Let's have another look. Mainz man, what German club do you support? I'm a Borussia Dortmund fan. Grew up watching the likes of Lars Ricken, and when BVB won the Champions League, part of me became a Borussia Dortmund fan, and I used to love the neon yellow shirts that they used to have back in the day. I don't know if any of you can remember those, but they were just iconic for me, and ended up buying one of those and have always followed BVB ever since. Havertz versus Füllkrug up front. I think we've talked about those quite a bit, so I don't want to bore you with that anymore. Who do you think the toughest opponent will be in the group stage? I think we've been over that as well. I think Switzerland will probably be the team to give Germany their toughest test, which can or could be worrying as well. Let's just hope that Germany